TV Republika has obtained a copy of a document sent from the Ministry of National Defense to the General Staff of the Polish Army. Reduction in the years 2025 to 2028 by approximately 57.37 billion zloty, approximately 25%, of the expenditure limit for the Central Material Plan in relation to the current expenditure forecast. If the budget submitted to the headquarters was subject to these financing regulations, the modernization of the Polish army planned for the coming years would be severely delayed and hampered in scale. The General Staff of the Polish Army, headed by General Wiesław Kukuła, sent a response to the Ministry of National Defense. Due to the drastic reduction, this is almost 58 billion zloty, negative 25%, in expenditure for the Central Material Plan in 2025 till 2028, as compared to the current forecast, the General Staff of the Polish Army has opted not to confirm the document. General Kukuła stopped the process of reducing the budget of the Ministry of Defense in the part concerning the modernization of the armed forces, because he did not agree with the document. I think that publishing this document by TV Republika and General Kukuła's firm position have stopped this process. Members of the military speak openly about these frictions. It has become a tradition for different institutions to express conflicting views at this stage. For now, the head of the Ministry of Defense has not ratified this document. The head of the Ministry of National Defense, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, described this story as fake news and claims that defense spending will increase next year. The government has decided to increase spending on defense, both in nominal terms and, more importantly, as a percentage of GDP. But the documentation says otherwise. Kosiniak-Kamysz did not comment on their contents. The statement of the Ministry of National Defense serves only to slander us. The Ministry of National Defense calls for the immediate retraction of the false story published by TV Republika. If the story is not withdrawn, we will consider taking appropriate legal action to protect the good name of the MOD and to prevent the further spread of disinformation. We also wonder whether those who spread this story may have had ulterior motives. They may have been inspired by foreign adversaries, such as Russia. We want to know who these authors were working for and what their motives were. We hope the head of the Ministry of Defense and the Deputy Prime Minister will address this issue meaningfully and not just threaten us or accuse us of working for hostile foreign entities. These documents are there. That's why the management of TV Republika demanded an apology from the Ministry of Defense. We have confirmation that the document containing the spending plans was, indeed, sent to the General Staff of the Polish Army. We are not talking about a letter, we are talking about draft guidelines. We adopted certain guidelines, and these amounts were higher than in 2024. I understand that the General Staff has issued an opinion on this project. Yes, it is a cyclical element resulting from internal normative laws in force in the Ministry of National Defense. MPs from Law and Justice conducted a parliamentary inspection at the Ministry of National Education and found out that there are documents planning to reduce spending on army modernization. We have confirmed that such a letter was sent from the Ministry of Defense to the General Staff. It was related to such a request for cuts in matters related to arms purchases, as well as programs such as Operation Spey, related to the purchase of equipment, or the maintenance of NATO-allied American troops in Poland. These are just a few examples of the kind of things that were included in the letter. As Member of Parliament Jabłoński points out, the situation inside the Ministry of Defense is currently very chaotic. The Director General, Michał Dziubak, allegedly said that Minister Kosiniak-Kamysz was not aware of the letter. After an hour, the Director General and two people came back with the news that the letter was there, but that it was secret. The question is whether it was secret from the beginning, whether it was revealed during the trial, and whether the Classified Documents Act procedures were followed, because they are very detailed. We will have an investigation into this case, because there has been a breach of law in order to conceal facts. Facts which were revealed by the journalist.
Właśnie po to, żeby ukryć te fakty, które ujawnili dziennikarze telewizji Republika.
The so-called Time of Troubles began in Moscow after the death of the last Tsar of the Rurik dynasty. It was the time of the Dimitriads, when Ivan the Terrible's miraculously saved son, Dmitri, went to the Kremlin to claim his inheritance. There was a number of false Dimitris, whose expedition destabilized the Muscovite state to the benefit of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth.
Niezwykle ciekawy
It was a very interesting time. We had a chance, we had a geopolitical window, a historical window to become an empire, a really great empire. The armies of the Republic of Poland were under the command of Crown Hetman Stanisław Żółkiewski. The Polish victory was decided by the genius of the Polish leader, the effect of surprise, and the irreplaceable Hussars. For the Hussars, this will be one of the finest laurels of their glory. It should be borne in mind that in this battle, the Hussars attacked several times in order to give the impression that they were much larger than they really were. As a result of the battle victory, Tsar Wasyl Szujski of Moscow paid tribute to the Polish king, Sigismund III. The boyars elected the Polish prince Władysław as Tsar. The Polish rule in the Kremlin lasted for 2 years. The anniversary of the liberation of Moscow from our influence is now celebrated in Russia as the Day of National Unity. This is one of the foundations of Vladimir Putin's imperial rhetoric. From the perspective of the Russian Federation and Russian history in general, these events are of course a time of trouble. Centuries have passed, and Russia is still a threat to Poland. Moscow's imperialism shows its brutal face in Ukraine, where the shelling of civilians continues every day. The horror has been going on for more than 2 years. There was no siren, it was quiet, and suddenly there was a bang and everything broke. The glass broke. Everything broke. 7 people were injured, including an 8-year-old boy. 4 people have been taken to hospital. In order to prevent the war from spreading to Poland and other countries, the modernization of our army is crucial. For several months now, there have been worrying signals, such as the arrival of the head of the Bundeswehr, which point to the potential weakening of the Polish army. Germany takes responsibility for NATO's eastern flank. The German general's words of a few months ago are beginning to materialize with the latest statement by Prime Minister Donald Tusk. The victory at Kłuszyn went down in Polish history. We can only hope that war will not come to our door again today. The sacking of Tomasz Trzaskowski, Poland's ambassador to NATO, just before the Alliance's summit in Washington caused consternation. It also deprived Poland of an important post. Trzaskowski had been nominated as NATO's Deputy Secretary General. What will be the next steps? A look back. I have received the documents, but in my opinion, they do not in any way discredit Ambassador Trzaskowski. The content of these documents has nothing to do with the function that the ambassador to the North Atlantic Alliance and NATO headquarters has performed for Poland in recent years. He has served there very well and successfully. Although the president openly disagreed with Tomasz Trzaskowski's dismissal, it took place in an atmosphere of scandal. He was accused of having found secret documents that disqualified him. I am very surprised that the president and his people are approaching this issue in this way. Mr. Trzaskowski should never become an ambassador, and Mr. Trzaskowski should return to Warsaw as soon as possible. Tomasz Trzaskowski reacted strongly to this kind of insinuation. He explained that he had voluntarily undergone additional vetting procedures before taking up the post. Before becoming Poland's ambassador to NATO, Tomasz Trzaskowski was Deputy Minister of National Defense and has completed and passed all security procedures. I consider the use of such an argument to be an excuse. Such accusations must have echoed through NATO headquarters. But as it turned out, it did not only harm Trzaskowski himself, they harmed Poland. Tomasz Trzaskowski was considered a front-runner for the job of NATO Deputy Secretary General, when the Foreign Ministry sacked him in scandalous circumstances. This is how the Foreign Ministry explained it. Elections have consequences. I would like to remind you that Article 146 of the Constitution states that the Council of Ministers conducts foreign policy. But such a policy is bad for the country's image and Polish interests. You think it is better that no Pole occupies an important position than a Pole associated with law and justice, even if he is a qualified professional who is highly regarded as an expert in NATO. Poland deserves this position. Poland has never had a Deputy Secretary General of NATO, and it is very involved in security issues on the eastern flank. Tomasz Trzaskowski would take this position if only this government would do nothing or remain silent on the matter. Firstly, there will be losses in the military aspect, and secondly, in the economic aspect. We will lose investments that would have been made in Poland. We should also talk about the diplomatic and political aspect. i.e., Poland's position within the North Atlantic Alliance. Once again, symbolically, politics has triumphed over Poland's interests. Starmer entered politics relatively late, first being elected to the UK's House of Commons at age 52 in 2015. Before that, he was a lawyer who rose to become the chief prosecutor for England and Wales. He had a big public profile, but no need to ask the public for votes. As a candidate for high office, Starmer has had no choice but to tell his backstory. Since becoming Labour leader in 2020, he stressed his humble roots, often describing how his father worked as a toolmaker and his mother a nurse, while they raised their children in a Pebble Dash semi, a small home adjoining another property.
Mr. Speaker, may I welcome the new cabinet to their places? We have a new Chancellor who accepted a job from the Prime Minister on Wednesday afternoon and then told him to quit on Thursday morning. A new Northern Ireland Secretary who once asked if you need a passport to get to Derry. And the new Education Secretary, whose junior ministers have literally been giving the middle finger to the public. It is truly the country's loss that they will only be in post for a few weeks. Now, the Prime Minister must be feeling demob happy since he was pushed out of office. Finally, he can throw off the shackles, say what he really thinks, and forget about following the rules.
I think a bit more stability. Fewer of these, dirty politics from the Tories. So hopefully things get cleaned up a little bit. But I think it's, time for a change.
Ecstatic. They have got to get out. We've got to get rid of them. 14 years is way too long.
I don't think we'll see much of a change, to be honest. We're irrespective of which government we get, right? They've all got the same policies, pretty much.
I'm feeling excited. I feel like it can only get better, right?
I'm hopeful, but not super optimistic. So I'm trying to be optimistic, but I want it to be good. Yeah, I don't want to say too much. Don't want to overpromise.